Hi folks, my name is Marie Levy Pabst and I help parents create balance using very practical strategies and systems. And I want to hop on here today to talk about guilt. I teach a lot of workshops. It's primarily what I do with Create Balance. I teach workshops around time management and getting organized, all around value, right? Instead of just trying to get a bunch of stuff done. But what comes up routinely in my workshops is even when people are really getting a hold of the strategies, like we get a hold of the to-do list, we acknowledge that we can't do everything and so we have to set priorities. Or we talk about all the things we value and then we set our essential values. Again, narrowing in on what we really can focus on. There's always this piece that comes up, and that's the guilt piece, right? Because it doesn't matter how thoughtfully or how intentionally we figure out what matters or figure out what we're going to do, or we make conscious choices about I'm going to put my energy here, which means this other thing is not going to get done. And even when we are doing that at our sort of best intentional selves, there's this guilt that comes up. And I get a lot of people that kind of jokingly, like joking but not joking, ask me like, okay, but how can I get rid of the guilt? And here's what I want to tell everybody. You don't get rid of the guilt. You just don't. And I hope that's not too bad news, because I actually found this really empowering once I figured this out. You don't get rid of the guilt for all the stuff you're not doing, or all the stuff you're not doing as well as you'd like, or all the ways you think you're failing in all these other parts of your life. You don't get rid of the guilt. But what you can do, what is in your control, is how you respond to the guilt. So I want to take you through what it looks like to think about the guilt in a way that's productive. Because I think number one, like step one, is recognize that you're going to feel guilty about stuff. You're going to feel bad. You might even feel shame, and that's a longer conversation on a post that I will link to in the comments here about the difference between guilt and shame, and mom guilt and mom shame. But I want you first to just say this with me. I am going to feel guilty sometimes. I'm going to feel bad about what I'm choosing to do or not choosing to do sometimes. Just own it. You're going to feel it. So once you've decided I'm going to feel it, I'm not going to try to shut that down. I'm not going to let guilt control me. I'm not going to panic when I feel that way. I'm going to notice it. Oh, I'm feeling really guilty about this. I'm feeling like I'm a bad mom, or I'm bad at this. What am I going to do about it? And so this brings us to like the next piece. Feeling guilty usually comes up when there's some tension, right? So sometimes I know I feel like as a parent and as a mom, I feel guilty for not doing things as other moms I know, especially my friends who are either stay-at-home moms or have more flexible or more primarily the caregiver in their household. I'm not, my spouse is. But these mom friends I have that are always there, like they always make sure they go on their kids' field trips. I've already missed 2 field trips this year. Like, I'm not going on them. There's a good chance I won't go on any of my kids' field trips this year as a chaperone. And that's one of those times when, man, the guilt, like, it creeps up. And I just start thinking, my personal narrative is always, I'm a bad mom. And so when we notice that, it's worth asking this question. Where is the tension? Where is the tension between what actions I'm choosing and the expectations? Because guilt comes up when there's a tension between our actions and the expectations. So the next question is, where are those expectations coming from? Are they coming from an external source? Is it what we think other people expect of us, or what we think society expects of us, or what we think our family expects of us? Or are those expectations coming internally? Are they coming from what we expect of ourselves, or what we think we should be doing somehow? I know for the field trip example, nobody else in my family expects me to go on those field trips. My kids are always a little sad because they see other parents on the field trips, but in the end, they're really fine. The expectation comes a little bit from my kids, not at all from my spouse, and 80% from me thinking that I should be more like what my mom did or what other moms I see are doing. And so once we know where that tension comes from, you can say, okay, you have 2 options. When you feel guilty, noticing the guilt, and then you have 2 choices. You can adjust the expectations, or you can adjust your behavior. So in the example of with the field trips, I can adjust my internal expectations of myself. I can remind myself that while maybe I would like to go on the field trips, or maybe I would just like to be the kind of person who would like to go on the field trips, the reality is that I've made choices and have been lucky to make choices where I'm doing things that I love for my job. That means I can't go on the field trip and say, oh no, it's okay, I made this choice. I don't have to have this expectation for myself. I can change those expectations on myself. We can't always change what others expect of us, but we can acknowledge that we're not meeting it because we're choosing not to, or because it's not feasible for us. So one option when you feel guilty is to address the expectation. The other option is to change your actions, because sometimes guilt can be a clue for us, that it's like a little bit of a clue that we maybe our actions aren't in line with our values. Maybe it's not about expectations, but maybe it's about being in line with our values, and so we can adjust our behavior. And I know when I was, just an example recently, I've been looking at my phone, checking social media. It's a very common thing we talk about all the time. But I was feeling really guilty for having my phone out so much with my kids, and my kids were complaining about it. So there's some outside expectations, some internal expectation. And I thought about it. I'm like, okay, I feel guilty that I have my phone out right now. Why do I feel guilty? It's like, well, I don't want to be staring at my phone when I'm around my kids. I don't want to model that for them. I don't really want to be distracted by it for them. And so from there I was saying, okay, is this changing the expectation or the behavior? For me, it was changing the behavior. I need to find another way to tune out a little bit, because I did need to tune out sometimes for my kids, and I was going to my phone for that. I just need to find an alternative to that. So basically, what I want to wrap up by saying is, you're going to feel guilty. It's really normal. You're not alone. And the question is not, how can you stop feeling guilty? The question is, how can you address that guilty feeling? How can you notice it? And how can you make a decision? Are you going to change the expectations or reframe the expectations? Or are you going to change your actions? You could do one of those two things. But trying to pretend that you won't feel guilty, that's sort of out of the realm of possibility. We're probably going to feel guilty, but the good news is there's stuff you can do about it. All right, so just some thoughts on guilt. As always, check out the Create Balance website, where there's a ton of resources around time management, getting organized, and most importantly, line up your time and energy with what you really value. Because while we can't stop feeling guilty, maybe some of those strategies can help it go away a little more often. So you can check that out at www.createbalancelife.com. Thanks so much for watching.